Okay, now for the second half of chapter 3. Someone was calling her name, and Martha looked to see Jeanette Morton from the bakery, stuck on the other side of the hill. Jeanette was sitting on the roof of her car eating cinnamon rolls. Martha sloshed over, and Jeanette helped her up. Martha was so hungry she ate 2 of the delicious pastries before she answered Jeanette's question of what had happened to her arm. Possibly broken, Martha said between mouthfuls. My goodness, Jeanette said. And what do the McGill boys think they're doing? That water is dangerous. They'll be fine, Martha said, trying to convince herself of their safety as well. After all, she had seen how they swam underwater, their webbed hands flashing like flippers. What about your father? Is he all right? Jeanette had an expression that was both worried and far away. She had been a good friend of Martha's mother ever since Hildy had entered the picture, she hadn't come around. I'm sure Hildy's taking care of him, Martha reminded him. Oh, Hildy, Jeanette said sadly. Oak Grove is filled with awful things and terrible people, Martha said. I'm like my mother when it comes to this town. I belong in a city like New York or Paris or San Francisco. I'm leaving as soon as I can. But your mother loved Oak Grove. She told me the happiest day of her life was when she came here and met your father. She used to go out in the field beyond Penman's Creek at night and dance before you were born. Jeanette smiled at the memory. I went with her sometimes. I never saw anything as beautiful. Before Martha had time to think this over, a rowboat appeared on the flooded road. There were her father and Charlie McGill, paddling down the center of Main Street. Ahoy, Jeanette called, waving both hands over her head. Jeanette, you're a peach. You rescued my daughter, Mr. Gilmer called. And Martha didn't bother to correct her father. She didn't let him know she hadn't needed rescuing, because she saw the way Jeanette Morton was beaming. Martha couldn't help but wish that Jeanette had been the one who had started bringing over casseroles. Thank goodness you're safe, Mr. Gilmer said to Martha as he helped her into the rowboat. Martha winced, and her father realized she'd been hurt. I'm taking you right to Dr. Marsh's. He hugged Martha, and she felt truly happy, in spite of her arm and her waterlogged clothes. Her father seemed back to his old self, and she almost let out a whoop of joy. But then she noticed Mr. McGill. He was green and sorrowful, like a seasick man. My boys, Mr. McGill groaned. Where have they gone? It took one look to know he was afraid that he and Mrs. McGill had lost those they loved most in the world. Don't worry, Martha told him. They're the best swimmers you ever saw. They can outswim anyone. Charlie McGill shook his head. He didn't try to hide the fact that there were big, salty tears in his eyes. That's exactly what I was afraid of, he said. And that is the end of chapter 3. So go ahead and finish the questions. And chapter 4 will be in a separate video. Take care.